Hello and good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm very good, Errol. Thank you for having me on the show.
Well, I'm very excited to share a conversation with you because there's so much that we have in common as creative minds. But let's begin it off by, I want readers to know how you pronounce your name.
My name is Moira Buffini.
I love it. Ooh, that in itself has got a poetic vibe to it.
It's Irish Italian, so yeah, you can make of it what you will. It's Moira Buffini.
I want listeners to be able to go into a local bookstore, and I want them to call your name out personally so that people know what it is, and and they're not going to be standing there at customer service going, I don't know, who are you talking about? So now that it's so important, that name on that book.
It is indeed. It is indeed. I've had it pronounced many different ways. Moira will do.
I love it. In bringing the book together, where I'm super fascinated here is that you're setting free a debut novel. I mean, it's like you've got to give yourself permission as a creative soul, knowing that there are other people out here in the real world whose books are hidden underneath their beds or in attics. How did you give yourself that permission to write?
I think it's a story I've wanted to write for such a long time, literally decades. And my real profession is I'm a screenwriter. Yes. And a playwright. So I've written creatively all my life. When lockdown hit, all my work vanished overnight. I had a play in rehearsal. That was never going to happen. So all my work vanished. And I thought, well, why don't I just write this story that's been bugging me for all these years? And I began to write it in prose, and I just found I was absolutely loving it. Every day I would get up and enjoy writing it in prose. I think the difference is with a play, you're writing for a big audience. With
yes.
Screenwriting, you're writing for a massive audience. And with a novel, it felt the whole time like I was just writing for one person. And I really loved it. I thought the intimacy of that was so nice and so refreshing.
That's how they teach us in radio. It is the power of one-on-one. There's only one person that you're sharing a conversation with. Don't talk to them, talk with them. And that's what I feel inside your story here, is that you're sharing a story with me.
Yeah, I hope that is how it feels, because that's how it was to write. I loved it, and I learned a lot. The other great thing about writing a novel is, when you're writing for the screen, everybody keeps telling you to cut all the time. They keep saying, shorter, we need it shorter. You can't have that scene. That scene's got to be a page shorter. And people were telling me, my editors kept telling me to write more.
Yep.
Write more, fill in the colours. What's she thinking here? What does this look like? Tell us what else he says. All this kind of stuff. And I love that. I just love being able to be expansive like that, which you can't really do in drama because it's very, very distilled, So the novel was a real joy.
So being that playwright and that screenwriter, you get to see moving objects. When you were writing, did you envision those characters, Elsa and Nightingale, were they moving through your imagination as well? Yeah,
I think that's what years of writing for the screen has taught me, is just I just think visually. And I saw them, and that was so great, building the world as well. This is a story that's set thousands of years in the future. So you're kind of building a society from scratch. You're building, I started by building a village, and then I thought, okay, this other character here is in the capital city. What does that look like? What's that society like? So you're really building layer by layer. It's like painting a huge landscape, And you sort of think, okay, what's their level of technology? What's their religion? What's the economy like? What are the gender politics here? Are they kind of equals, or is there what's going on with gender politics? So there's all this kind of stuff to think of. And of course, the society I drew is a society at war. So then you have to colour in who's the enemy, what's their society like, how are they, who's gonna draw us into that world. So it's like painting a huge, huge canvas, and I did it layer by layer, just, I mean, you know, day by day, layer by layer, colouring in a little bit more and thinking everything through.
I love the way that you're asking yourself questions. I call that defragging. You know, I ask the questions and then I question the answers, because it really does bring the paragraphs together and it gives them more of a substance or purpose. And you do that perfectly so much in Songlight.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's not a story I sat down and planned the whole structure of before I started writing. And in a way, I think that's quite good, because I kept asking questions all the way through it. The big one, of course, being what happens next. You know, and I didn't know. I was really excited. I was on the edge of my seat. What would happen next? You know, so it was like a journey through the unknown, really, into this world, into this story of two young girls who are trying to keep each other alive. You know, one in the village and one in the city, communicating by telepathy, and they're both in these kind of perilous situations, trying to keep each other alive. And I didn't know what was going to happen next. And I think that questioning, I think that's such a key tool of any creative writer, is just keep asking the questions. If you know all the answers, it's less interesting somehow.
The way that you use the telepathy, though, see, because I've always believed that we do that and we just don't know it, that we are always speaking with somebody that is in a distant place. And then all of a sudden we think it's our brilliant idea, but maybe it was somebody else that happened to transfer it to us. So, I mean, you really do open up a conversation piece here.
Well, I think it's funny how we all, certainly me anyway, I can't really speak for everyone here, but I've always been drawn to stories about telepathy. And I think perhaps, you know, it's to do with our childhood imaginations. It's when we're not with our friends, we are still imagining that we are, you know, and we kind of lose that as we grow up. We grow into adulthood and we sort of, you know, lose a big piece of that imaginative play. But I think it's still there in us, really, as is our imagination of being outside of our body. We all imagine that all the time, and I think we certainly dream it, you know. So I think this sort of business of telepathy, it calls on stuff that's all there in our imagination, in our creativity, in our subconscious, and it just kind of gives it a name. And I think. It makes us all, we can all imagine, this is one special power we can all imagine that we have.
One of the things that's so fascinating about your book, Songlight, is the fact that you are very much up to date and in touch with who your reader is and what they're thinking about. Because reproductive freedom is something that is spoken about inside this book. They're talking about it. Their parents may not be talking about it with them, but they're talking about it inside their tight circles.
Yeah, this is the book is the dystopia in the book is very down on women and girls, and women and girls a little like the not too far distant past and the very frightening possible future, do not have agency over their own lives and their own bodies, and this book sort of examines that and kind of. Puts us in the shoes of girls who don't have the freedom that we have enjoyed. And I wrote it for my young self and for my daughter and her friends, and because it's these are things we have. These are freedoms we've struggled to get, and I think we need to, hold on to them.
Yeah. Yeah. In putting this book together, you made the decision to create a trilogy. I'm a show prep freak. I mean, if I knew that I was going to be writing a trilogy, I mean, I'd freak out. How are you planning this book out, or this story?
Bit by bit, it just keeps growing on me. I didn't start, like I say, I didn't start from the beginning thinking this is going to be a trilogy. I just got to the end of I just thought, this is more than one book. Yeah. I got halfway through book one, I thought, this is more than one book, and then I sort of thought, well, it's got to be three. It's got to be a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I've written book 2 now, and I'm beginning to sort of look into planning out book 3.
Wow.
And it's definitely, there is life in this world. There's a lot going on.
You know what's really interesting, though, is that because I am a book author and writing those books, so many times people will ask us about our own personal lives and what are our memories. And when you're locked in writing books and stories, that's our memories. And so many people don't tap into that, which is why I love talking with authors, because I hear your voice. I hear your passion. And man, I wish listeners could just really pick up on it as they read the story so they too can be inspired to write.
Yes, I hope so too. I think that's the wonderful thing about writing for a younger audience as well, is that I was really inspired by the books I read at that age. You know, and I think they're the best audience in the world. Young people are so bright. They are so open, and they're hungry for knowledge. They're hungry for everything, for knowledge, for experience. And I think younger readers love YA for that reason. And I think older readers love YA because it taps us back into our own rite of passage,
Yep.
You know, which really isn't very far from any of us, you know.
Well, yeah, because I'm glad that you brought that up about adult readers reading YA books. And the reason why is because I'm a true believer that love is ageless. And the fact that you've got a book like this, it allows older people to say, I'm going to step into the story and I'm going to go through the experience.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I mean, to be fair, the older people I know who've read the book have really loved it.
My wife included.
And I think I'm a secret reader of YA. I never stop reading it. And I think a lot of adults are the same, you know, that it's just a really wonderful genre for letting your imagination free and for talking, you know, giving us all a prism to look at our world, but through a really imaginative, creative sort of landscape.
Wow. You got to come back to this show in the future, especially when you're ready to pop that second book out, because I want to continue this story with you.
Oh, I'd love to. I'd really love to. Thank you so much for having me on.
Will you be brilliant today, okay?
Thank you.